Hello and welcome to the Bloodstream Podcast, a show serving the greater bleeding disorders community. Brought to you by Believe Limited and Bloodstream Media and made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Takeda. I am your patient advocate and host, Patrick James Lynch.
And I am your healthcare advocate, nonprofit nerd, and your other host, Amy Bradford, reminding you to please speak with a healthcare professional before making any treatment decisions.
On today's show, we are back from the Bleeding Disorders Conference that took place just a few weeks ago.
In Atlanta.
In Atlanta, Georgia. Feels like it was forever ago,
I know,
actually, at this point.
It does.
Like, what month was that? What year was that?
It does, but we're going to share our musings.
We are. We have musings. We'll share them. We don't keep our musings close to the chest. What? Close to the vest? Close to something that rhymes with that? The latest I'm Fine mental health segment will feature guest host Michael Bishop.
Yes.
Welcome, Michael. And the CEO from the Plasma Proteins Therapeutics Association, Anita Brikman, is back to share more on what is International Plasma Awareness Week. How about that?
Yes.
We've got all of that and more on today's episode. Welcome to Bloodstream.
Hey, y'all. Thank you for joining us today, as always. And if you like what you hear, please share this episode with your friends and your family on social or all the things. And also subscribe to the Bloodstream Podcast so all these episodes just appear.
Like magic. That's such a great idea. I also want to remind you, dear listeners, that the Bloodstream Podcast is indeed made possible by our presenting sponsor, Takeda. I don't just say that at the beginning. It's true. That's right. Takeda. Takeda's got this website. You may have heard of it. bleedingdisorders.com, where you can learn all about Takeda's resources for and commitment to the bleeding disorders community. Takeda, Amy Bradford, believes in a world free of bleeds, and they are dedicated more than ever in their efforts to offer a wide range of programs and support to help patients throughout their treatment journey, wherever on that journey they may be. You can learn more by simply visiting, get this, bleedingdisorders.com. One more time because, I know, bleedingdisorders.com. And for their founding and ongoing support of the Bloodstream Podcast, I would just like to say, with a LaCroix in hand, thanks, Takeda.
Oh, thank you, Takeda.
The LaCroix was a big part of it.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh, what did you think of the BDC? I saw you twice.
We really don't see each other outside of this podcast studio.
It's really true. It was also humongous. There were lots of people that connected with me on the back end. I didn't see ya. I
know. Well, and I feel like this is a theme every year at the BDC. Too big.
Right.
Conference center, too big. And I know the feedback is always we're of a size, we need a certain size space. But this one was just particularly labyrinth-like. It was up 2 escalators to go down 3 escalators and across a sky bridge and then around the thing and up the horn and the South Tower, the North Tower. I would love to have had just an aerial overview map of my routes as I went from place to place, because I don't think this is a joke. I don't think I ever went from point A to point B directly. I think every time I was South Tower, North Tower, South Tower Convention Center.
Yes.
It was never direct.
Yes, for sure.
So that's my main takeaway. That's the most important thing to share with community members is the logistical configuration of the World Congress Center.
Yeah. I will say opening session was awesome. You were fantastic.
Thanks.
There was great people up there, and they really made it conversational, and it was really lovely. So that was cool. If y'all missed that, it was great. And it set the tone. It really set a good tone.
Yeah, I heard a few people say the best opening session that they can remember are veterans who have been going to this for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And, I've seen my fair share, and I can't necessarily say there's one that stands out above and beyond.
Yeah.
So credit where it's due. The science fair certainly kept our team and you in particular plenty busy. What from the science fair kind of stands out to you? What was unique this year or just fun to see happening again? What science fair thoughts do you have?
I think the thing that's been really fun about the science fair, this is the big science fair that we do at BDC, and then we take a smaller, it's still oversized, but we take a smaller roadshow around chapters. And what's been nice this year is to see repeat customers, not necessarily from that we've seen before, but like people in the conference come back again and then they come back again and then they come back again. And kids especially, it's been really fun to have like kids go through with their groups, with their kid tracks, and then to see them come back with their parents and like dragging their parents and showing them certain games. So it was fun. We had a new module this year, looking at balancing, protein, how our body naturally balances itself like through the clotting process, through the coagulation process, which is so fascinating if you think about it. Like our bodies just naturally keep ourselves in check because if we didn't have those, other things that just kind of kept certain growth needed to stimulate to like form a clot in check, like we would overclot. And of course, as we all know, if you're deficient in one of those proteins in some way, like then your body again is out of balance. And we had a cool new game that kind of really enforced that teaching, and it was cool. It's always cool. It's the coolest thing we do.
How did you feel about the panel you hosted?
Loved the panel. Oh, it was about life stages, living with a bleeding disorder in the different stages of life. There was like young college students, and then there was 2 in their 30s or 40s, and then there was 2 glorious legend old timers. Randy Curtis was there, and Connie Montgomery, both have been on the show, were there, and oh, it was great. It was just a really fantastic conversation, and it was a packed room. Yeah. What about the stuff you hosted?
About what are we really struggling with?
Hey everybody, I'm Michael Bishop and this is I'm Fine. I've done this segment with Patrick before and a few other things here on Bloodstream Media, but in case you have no idea who I am, I'm a 31-year-old writer, illustrator, podcaster, and musician from Ohio. I have severe hemophilia B with an allergy and inhibitor to factor IX products. I'm here to host a few of these, and I think generally it'll just be me hanging out with you and reflecting on all things hemophilia and mental health. It'll probably mostly be personal stories from my life, from which I'll pull some lessons or thoughts that I hope you can relate to in some way. Today I want to talk about a big surgery I had a couple months ago, and the role that hope and hopefulness plays in our lives, specifically when it comes to big surgeries or new medications. My left knee has always been a target joint, one of a few. But what's more, I dislocated my patella, my kneecap, when I was 11, which required a surgery to realign, and then I fractured my tibia and fibula a year later. Those two things, coupled with frequent bleeds, really destroyed that knee. There was a significant amount of chronic pain, and its bone-on-bone structure led to frequent bleeds. So, needless to say, it was a mess. And I had to give up a lot of things that I loved. I had to make a lot of compromises when it came to my mobility and the activities that I could do. So because my knee was so damaged at such a young age, my orthopedic surgeon had been talking to me about a potential knee replacement since I was in high school. He was very upfront with me though and said that if I had one at that age, I would likely need another one at some point in the future. And I think one knee replacement is about all I have in me, per knee at least. So for half my life, I would grit my teeth and deal with the pain and the limited mobility and the frequent bleeds and the mental health struggles that come along with having a joint like that. All of which really weighed on me throughout the years. They eventually became so commonplace that they felt normal, but I don't think the weight on my shoulders got any lighter, nor do I think I got any stronger. I think I just got used to moving a little more slowly. I got used to not being able to skateboard. I got used to not being able to walk around with my friends like I wanted to, and I even got used to the pain most of the time. Then once I entered my 30s, I took a job where I was traveling quite a bit, and my knee got progressively worse pretty quickly. I would often travel on the weekends, which would inevitably cause a bleed. Then I would come home, lay in bed in pain while waiting for the bleed to resolve, plan the next weekend's trips, and then do it all over again. I eventually had to quit that job, and it got to the point where I was in a wheelchair almost 100% of the time, which is not something that I was used to. I had used a wheelchair a lot in my life and all manner of walking assistance, but I think I was able to pretend that it wasn't that big of a deal in those moments because I had those times in between where I was walking around and I could kind of pretend that my knee wasn't that big of a deal. I could feel quote unquote normal for a little while. But even with limiting my mobility almost completely, my knee was still too much day to day. It was still bleeding too much, it still hurt too much, and so I knew that it was time for a knee replacement. So I met with my surgeon, we did some x-rays, and he showed me exactly what was going on in there. It's one thing to feel degradation and kind of understand that it's happening, but it's another thing entirely to see it. He said it was one of the worst knees he had ever seen in his 30 years as a surgeon. And I don't have a ton of experience looking at knee x-rays, but based off of how mine looked, I was inclined to believe him. So we talked about the process of the replacement and what that would look like. Because I use a bypassing agent due to my allergy, we both knew it would be a bit of an uphill battle. But still, I signed up, and at the end of that appointment, we scheduled the surgery. I left his office, I went into the bathroom in the lobby, and I cried. I cried because I knew how painful it was going to be. I cried because I didn't want to be someone who needed a knee replacement at 31. And I cried because I was just so tired. So tired. I had been fighting this knee my entire life, and still it was asking me to do more. On the drive home, though, which was about an hour, I talked to my mom, and we got to imagine all of the cool things that would happen after the knee replacement. Our voices were filled with hope. I was going to walk again without pain. I was going to straighten my knee for the first time in 20 years and maybe even skateboard again. All of those things came rushing through me, and I got very excited. The fear was replaced with hopefulness. It felt a little bit like when you buy a Powerball ticket for the lottery. You go home, you look at the houses you'll be able to afford, you pick your dream car and build it online. You think about changing all of your friends' lives by giving them money. It's very hopeful and optimistic. And that's how I felt. Then the surgery day came. It was a difficult morning. I felt like canceling it, honestly. I was very scared to fully commit to it, which sounds silly because it was the day of, but the reality of the situation had finally hit me. But those fantasies came flooding back to me, those hopes for the future and what my life would look like 6 months from then, which helped see me through. But the surgery was more painful than I could have ever imagined. It immediately bled, and it was more pain than I had ever experienced, which is genuinely saying something. At one point, the staff at the surgical center told me that if I didn't stop crying out in pain, they were going to have to send me somewhere else because I was disturbing the other patients. Which is fair, but there wasn't a lot I could do about it. I laid in bed and I regretted ever agreeing to do the surgery. In that moment, all of those hopes slipped away. But eventually, I came home, the bleed settled, and I began the long process of physical therapy. I once again became incredibly motivated by the prospect of all those fantasies I had coming true. I literally thought sometimes, if I just get through this PT, I'll be skateboarding again soon, and that carried me through. But as the months passed, my knee wasn't giving me the superpowers that I thought it would. I finished physical therapy, and I could straighten it more than I could before surgery, but it wasn't completely straight. I have way less pain than I did before surgery, but it isn't painless. I can walk further than I could before surgery, but not as far as I want to. And I still can't skateboard. My knee just became an okay knee. It doesn't bleed, it doesn't have as much chronic pain, and that's all I need really. But it isn't all that I wanted. Reality had finally settled in a little bit. And this is a feeling I've had many times before. I think as hemophiliacs, it's easy to get in this headspace of this new thing is going to fix all my problems. The new surgery, the new medication, etc. This will be the cure-all that I've always needed. And those things likely will make your life better. Maybe you will achieve everything that you're imagining. But I've been a victim of my own high expectations. Then suddenly better doesn't feel better at all because it wasn't better enough. But if you're in this situation, take some time to reevaluate your goals. Recalibrate your feelings about where you are. Because if today is better than yesterday, or heck, even just as good, you're in a good place. We spend a lot of time feeling our bodies get worse. So take some time today to appreciate the parts of your body that isn't getting worse. And never give up that hope you feel. Use it as the tool that it is. Even if it leads you to some crazy places sometimes, places you won't get to, use it to get you through those hard times. And once you do, appreciate wherever you end up. Because if you're still going, you're doing enough. Thank you.
So around that vein, why is it important?
Remembering that that's a part of this whole ecosystem of developing life-saving therapies and thinking about all the people out there with various disorders. Plasma can be somewhat of a uniting force in the sense of how many people can live perfectly healthy lives if they have access to these therapies. So spreading the word about plasma donation, the importance of plasma-derived therapies, mentioning it on social media, encouraging family and friends to consider becoming a regular plasma donor because there are patients in need.
Anita, as always, thank you for joining us. I always love when you come. It's always a great conversation. But even more so, I think it is just such an important reminder for our community, especially here in the States, to kind of think outside of themselves and to really get behind this in a way and to follow your work. And we just really appreciate it. We really appreciate your partnership with the bleeding disorder community and, other rare disease communities. So thank you so much for the work you do.
It's wonderful. And I really like that closing message about thinking outside of what we experience here in the United States, because the needs in other lower and middle income countries, it is a completely different landscape. And there are still too many patients with bleeding disorders who do not have access to the therapies they need, and that needs to change.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.